Finishing up the top 25 starting pitchers in Major League Baseball for 2025. We're doing number 12 to number 1, and then we got Walker Buehler, the newest Boston Red Sox starting pitcher who just reported to camp yesterday for the first time. Pitchers and catchers report today, and spring training games get going Thursday the 20th is Cubs Dodgers for the first two, and then I think everybody gets going in earnest either the 21st or the 22nd. Regardless, it's the Just Baseball show for Wednesday, February 12th. As always, it's brought to us by the fine folks at BetMGM, and I'm pretty fired up for this episode, man.
This episode is such a banger. Top 12 pitchers in Major League Baseball. Then we review the list with Walker Buehler himself. Also, right, spring training is right on the horizon. We got guys reporting to camp, but also the college baseball season is starting up soon. Make sure to go follow On the Clock, our newest college baseball podcast. They're doing great work over there. They're loading up the website, justbaseball.com, with tons of college rankings. We got a ton of just graphics and stuff on our Instagram that you can go check out, but I highly recommend just checking out their analysis. We're also going to do a college baseball preview coming up here soon, so be on the lookout for that. But they are doing a great job. Want to shout out them. Again, college baseball fans, go check them out.
Yeah, 100%, man. I don't know how we're going to do the college baseball thing. I'm not sure if we're going to do it before Friday or not, but we're going to send some messages and see if we're going to do it before Friday or not. So we'll be good.
Will be great. But right
Cool.
now, we're talking MLB pitchers. And this list, I mean, there are some arguments to be made, but I don't know how many. We'll see. We'll see.
Yep.
We'll go back and forth.
Yeah, we'll run through 25 through 13 right now. The honorable mentions on this list were Seth Lugo of the Royals, Tanner Bybee of the Guardians, Pablo Lopez of the Twins, Sonny Gray of the Cardinals, Joe Ryan of the Twins, Shota Imanaga of the Cubs, and Luis Castillo of the Seattle Mariners. Shane McClanahan at Tampa was number 25. Number 24 was Hunter Green of the Cincinnati Reds. 23, Tyler Glasnow of the Dodgers. 22, Sandy Alcantara of the Miami Marlins. 21, Zach Gallen of the Arizona Diamondbacks. 20, Shohei Ohtani of the Dodgers back on the mound. 19 was Michael King of the San Diego Padres. 18, George Kirby of the Seattle Mariners. 17, Max Fried, the newest New York Yankee. 16 was Dylan Cease of the Padres as well. Yoshinobu Yamamoto of the Dodgers was number 15. 14 was Spencer Strider of the Atlanta Braves. Do not forget about him. And then Framber Valdez was the last guy that we talked about on the Monday show. He is the Houston Astros opening day starter, I would assume. You've got evens, right?
I do. And we can
Lead
get
us
straight
off.
into it. Just want to start. I had Hunter Green at 18.
Yeah.
Reds Nation stand up. Hunter Green should be ranked higher, but some people didn't even have them in their top 30. But thankfully, he made the list, but he is still too damn low. So that's my one issue. But other than that, I think it's a pretty solid list. It's also really hard to rank guys who were injured last year
Really
or a
hard.
guy like Spencer Strider. He's 14. I think all of us on the panel fully recognize that if he was pitching the entirety of this next 2025 season, he would be well within the top 10, or at least
I,
I would be putting him in the top 10. But
I think you have
unfortunately, he's not going
three.
to start the year till May or June.
I think you have three top 8 to 10 pitchers in Major League Baseball that would be top 10 if they didn't miss the entirety of last year. In McClanahan, in Sandy, and in Strider. Like, I think those three guys are top 10 pitchers in baseball, but it's just hard to rank them off of
And
a
when
year where they did not throw.
100%. And Walker even brought it up. So you'll hear him in the episode going over our top 10. He's
Yeah.
just saying how hard it is to come back from injury, how one guy could handle it a lot better than another guy. And it's just really tough to know. So he would have taken all the guys who have been injured, at least last season, out of his list. We decided to include him in the best spots that we could. And again, just another reminder, you can follow along with this list on justbaseball.com. 6 panelists all have their own list. Aggregate them into one final list. That's why I might have disagreements with Jack. Jack,
Yep.
the same with me. Myself with Aram, all of us. So you can follow those rankings on justbaseball.com. And for all those watching this on YouTube, hit us with a like, subscribe. Why not? And comment what you think about the list when it's all done. And of course, stay tuned for Walker.
Of course.
All right. Let's get into number 12 on the top 25 pitchers in Major League Baseball. Blake Snell, the new Los Angeles Dodger. Now, if we're looking where everybody ranked Blake Snell, I'm just loading it in right now. Fink and I were the high guys. I had him in the top 10 at number 10. Fink had him at number 9. You had him at 15. And you were the low man on him. And let me try and convince you why he should be higher. I know that this is he's a tough button for you to press.
Yes.
Like you're not a huge Blake Snell guy because of the walks. But when it comes to run prevention and just in general, he might be the toughest pitcher to make consistent contact against. In 2023, Blake Snell won the Cy Young Award, pitching to a 2.25 ERA over 180 innings. He was number one in strikeouts per nine last year, second in ERA at 2.57. Or, excuse me, since 2023. He's number one in strikeouts per nine, second in ERA. The thing is, and why you probably have him a little bit lower, 55th in innings, right? Has thrown over 180 innings just twice in 9 seasons. But what we can't debate here is that once he settles in, or once, especially last year, untouchable. The peak, especially of last year, was undeniable. Over the second half, 68 innings. He led MLB in ERA at a 1.45, led Major League Baseball in FIP at 1.72. Opponents hit 133 against him with a 40% strikeout rate. And like I said, he might be the hardest pitcher for hitters to make contact against. 96-mile-an-hour fastball at the top that opponents hit 200 against. Then he has 3 off-speed pitches with a 44% whiff rate or higher. 44%. That is absurd. If you're a pitcher and you have one pitch with a 40% whiff rate, that's incredible. That means hitters are swinging and missing at a 40% rate against that pitch. In 2023, curveball and slider were above 50% whiff rates. So what's the issue with Blake Snell? Not a lot of innings and the walks. Everything else is top 3. Like everything else in terms of unhittableness, a word I just made up. Blake Snell is up there with the elite of the elite. That's why I personally had him in the top 10 because the talent is just so undeniable. And there are a few cracks. I get it, but the cracks are not enough for me to move him that far down, knowing, in my opinion, he's a top 3 or 4 talent.
Yeah. So Blake Snell in the last 3 years has made 24 starts, 32 starts, and 20 starts. So 20 plus 32 is 52, plus 24 is 76. Is that right?
Sounds right.
Yeah. He's made 76 starts in the last 3 years. How many times has he thrown more than 6 innings? I think it's
0,
nine.
9.
How many times has he thrown more than 7 innings? It's once, the no hitter. That is why he's not in my top 10, and that's why he's a low guy. And he won a Cy Young walking 5 per 9. I understand that he misses all these bats, but like you get yourself into enough hairy situations, you're going to get burned a couple of times here. And he is one of the more stressful watches I have of elite starting pitchers. I view him as an elite starting pitcher. I think there are 15 to 20 elite starting pitchers, and he's absolutely in that grouping. But he's a really uncomfortable watch for me. And that is why he's not near the top 10 for me. I understand that he's won 2 Cy Youngs. I get it. And I understand that the batting average against is going to be one of the best marks in Major League Baseball year in and year out. But it is such a dangerous game that he pitches that I just cannot get behind. I'm sorry.
One thing that I'm starting to get behind, even though I don't have a lot of evidence for this, can the Dodgers pitching development make a few tweaks here? Can they make a few tweaks to make sure he's in the zone a little bit longer? And if the Dodgers are going to go with a 6-man rotation, is his arm a little bit more fresh to go a little bit longer? And if he just cuts out the amount of walks when that pitch count goes up, because to your point, how many Blake Snell starts have we seen where it's 5 innings, 3 hits, 9 Ks, 100 pitches, and like he can't even go any longer? And it's the manager is saying, well, obviously he's still pitching well, but we don't want to keep grinding him into the dirt in June. So why would we go to the 6th inning with him? But if he can tweak a couple things, get in the zone a little bit more with that level of stuff, he could win another Cy Young with LA.
Yeah.
That's why, in my opinion, I feel like I'm trying to get out in front of it. But again, I mean, I am relying on a team who does have a past history of getting a lot out of their starters, but when they're on the
They
field
also
because
they
it's not
also
like
have
the
a bunch of guys that throw max 140 innings.
exactly. So that's why I'm a little bit worried. Is it even more to the max of Blake Snell, where he never sees the sixth inning, but in those 5 innings, he's even more elite than he has been? I don't even know how you get more elite than what he's been doing in those 5 innings.
Yeah.
So I keep going back and forth, but I'm putting my faith in the Dodgers pitching development that he will be in the zone longer, leading to more innings. And with how good his stuff is, it's not like he has to change anything because as long as
Yeah.
he's in the zone, he's going to dominate.
I think development is a weird word to use for a guy that's 32 years old,
I
to be
don't mean
totally
develop. I more
honest with
mean
you.
tweaks, just
Okay.
little tweaks here and there.
Yeah, I don't know what the tweaks are. I think they paid a guy for what he's done. And I think that they're going to utilize him in a way that makes a lot of sense. So the comp that I made was he's probably just going to be the best version of how the Dodgers used Julio Urias a couple of years ago when he finished top three in Cy Young voting, where he was the best five and dive guy in Major League Baseball and it wasn't close. That's probably how they're going to use Snell. They've got an awesome bullpen. Don't forget they just signed Tanner Scott a couple weeks ago. We're looking at a team that has as tooled up, has deep of a bullpen as there is in Major League Baseball. They have a rotation that's really deep, obviously, but they also have a rotation full of guys that are going to throw 6 innings. So they need 3 to 4 innings a night from that really deep bullpen. I think Yamamoto can turn into that guy that can throw 7 innings every time he's on the mound. I just don't think that's in the cards for Snell. I don't think that's in the cards for Glasnow. And that's okay. They're really good pitchers. They're both on this list.
Yeah, I guess my thinking is yes, I think Yamamoto could take that next leap to do what you're saying in terms of being a real innings eater per start.
Yeah.
But I think they should be motivating Snell to do the same because you said it yourself. The rest of the rotation, who's given us 6 innings here?
But like, is that the identity of Blake Snell? It's not. It
But it
hasn't
could
been.
be
It
with
hasn't
a
been.
couple tweaks. It
You're
could be.
right. You're betting on something that hasn't happened yet, but could happen.
Yes. But it's with a pretty good organization to bet on,
It's
to
with
be
a good
fair.
organization, but also like again, the Dodgers have not historically turned guys into 200 innings.
Yeah, they haven't. But again, even if he is a five and dive guy, and even if he's 175 to 180 innings,
I
he could
think
still win
that's
a Cy
I
Young.
think that's lofty. Yeah, I think he's going to be 160.
Okay. All right,
But
I
he
would
could
bet
be
the
a
over
Cy
on
Young
that.
contender at 160 innings. Like that's how good the 160 can be.
I see where you're coming from because I don't think either of us are disagreeing on the talent. We're disagreeing about how many innings he could throw. And
Yeah,
when we're getting into the elite of the elite, like the top 10 pitchers in
that's
baseball,
the discrepancy.
that's the discrepancy. So
Yeah,
I
like
see where you're coming from.
we could make this episode 20 minutes long. This guy's freaking awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
this guy's awesome. I think he's a little bit more awesome than the
Yeah.
other guy that's awesome. But like that is where these discrepancies are going to lie. Let's go to a guy that I think is going to throw a lot of innings this year. Number 11 is Logan Gilbert of the Seattle Mariners. Me and Leo were the high guys at 10. Fink had him at 11. Eric had him at 11. You had him at 13. Arm had him at 14. So we were spread out between 10 and 14, which is tight. 33 starts this past year, 208 and two thirds innings at a 3.23 ERA. Whip, man. Whip under 0.9. Struck out 9.5 per nine, walked 1.6 hitters per nine. He might have gotten a Seattle bump. I think he did get a Seattle bump. He was awesome and he was so much fun to watch at home. But this guy, dude, like when he hit cruise control, it was such a fun watch this past year. And why can't he repeat 200 innings? I think this guy's a stud.
I think he's a great pitcher too. Absolutely. I mean, I ranked him 13th.
Yeah.
I was a little bit lower on him just because I am a little bit, you know, not afraid. Afraid is the wrong word, but I definitely do notice the home road splits.
Hmm.
I mean, in home games, he pitched to a 2.49 ERA, 115 strikeouts and 101 innings. The strikeouts drop off on the road, and his ERA was 3.94. And Seattle, especially last year, was such a good park to pitch in for
Yeah.
pitchers. I mean, Tasker Hernandez has mentioned it when he left, right? But especially last year, if we look at Baseball Savant park factors, it was easier to pitch at T-Mobile in Seattle than it was to hit at Coors Field.
Hmm.
And it's not necessarily his fault that he pitches there and pitched really well, but a 3.94 ERA on the road, and he was so good in the first half of last year, trailed off a little bit. 4.01 ERA in the second half. There was just a couple of things where I'm like, is he truly the guy that I want on the mound over a couple other guys that we ranked higher? And I said, I think he's going to your point, right? He does pitch in Seattle. So why can't he throw another 200 innings next year to a 3-3,
Yeah.
right? I think that there's a decent chance that he's going to do that. Of course, with pitchers saying a guy has a decent chance to get 200 innings, isn't exactly a sentence that we could say with full confidence at this time. But if we're comparing him to other starting pitchers, he's one of the more likely guys, which is why he ranks really high. But it's not a ton of strikeout stuff. He does do a great job of keeping the ball on the ground. But when you have such staunch differences between home and road, knowing your home ballpark is the best place to pitch in, I'm just going to knock you a little bit. And when I watch Logan Gilbert compared to some of the other guys I ranked a little bit higher, it's not quite as electric, right? It's not as enjoyable of a watch. So when I considered all of those things, I just had him a little bit lower than consensus, but still a fantastic pitcher and the ace of the Mariners on arguably the best staff in baseball.
It's crazy because they have three of them and they might have five of them by the end of the year. I'm super high on Bryce Miller this year. Obviously, I'm high on Brian Wu this year. Like, I think Gilbert's the one, but you could convince me that Kirby's the one by the end of 25. You can convince me that Luis Castillo reclaims the one by the end of 25. You could convince me that one of those two breaks out to the point where they're in the conversation of Gilbert and Kirby too.
I just thought it was so interesting that all five of them had home road troubles.
Yeah, but like I think it's more of a home boost than a
Of
road
course.
deficiency.
But again, these road ERAs are in the mid to high threes. It's not a 2.6 at home and a 3.2 on the road. These are 2.5s at homes and 3.9s on the road.
Yeah,
That's a big difference for
it
me.
is.
It's kind of like when we're ranking some of these Rockies at times where it's like, yeah, he had a 950 OPS at home and a 770
Yeah,
on the
it's
road.
it's all it's all some sort of Trevor Story variation. Like
Yeah,
every one of these conversations.
and when all these guys are so incredible,
Yeah,
it's hard for me to overlook that.
I understand.
But again,
Yeah,
still pretty damn good. All
awesome.
right, we're getting into the top 10 now. Top 10 pitcher in Major League Baseball, and I'm so excited to say this, Cole Reagans of the Kansas City Royals. So if we look at where everybody ranked him, you and I were both at 9. Arm was the low man at 13. Eric also had him at 9. Leo had him at 11. Fink had him at 10. He's coming off a season 3.14 ERA and 186 innings. He was awesome. So the story of Cole Reagans is pretty awesome. I know I've just said awesome a lot, but he is awesome.
Yeah,
So Cole Reagans comes over in the Aroldis Chapman trade, and this was a reliever, mostly sitting 92, right? Has dealt with the Tommy John injury in the past, but he made his
several
Royals debut on July 15th. Wait, did you say something?
several Tommy John surgeries.
Yes,
Isn't he a
several.
two TJ guy?
I think he's a 2 TJ guy.
Yeah.
Earlier on in his career, but still a 2 TJ guy. He made his debut July 15th of 2023. From that point through the end of the regular season, he pitched to a tune of a 2.64 ERA, which was 7th in baseball over that stretch, to go along with the single best fielding independent pitching in Major League Baseball, FIP, right at 2.49, and the third best WAR at 2.4.
Yep.
Reagan throws 5 pitches: four seamer, changeup, slider, cutter, knuckle curve. I think a way that he can kind of improve here is changing up that cutter or maybe just scrapping it. Opponents at 340 against it, and he threw it less than he did last year than in 2023. Again, I don't know how he's going to change it. I might just scrap it because his other pitches are just so good. He's got that bullet slider. His changeup is awesome. His fastball, he can locate it. And again, which allowed me to rank him in the top 10 at number 9. What are you going to do in big moments? And he stepped up. First ever playoff start on the road in Baltimore. 6 shutty, 8 strikeouts. Then his second ever playoff start again on the road in Yankee Stadium. 4 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 5 strikeouts. The issue was he just walked a couple of guys, but it had nothing to do with the quality of stuff within the zone. He's 27 years old. He's 6'4", 190 pounds, which is the same build as Zach Wheeler and Jacob deGrom. And I think the Royals kind of pointed to him and said, "You're our guy. Lugo finished second in Cy Young voting, and they chose Reagans to get the opening nod in the playoffs.
Yeah,
I think it says a lot. So ever since really he's become a starter back in 2023, this guy's been one of the best pitchers in baseball. Meets the eye test. He's got the perfect build for a starting pitcher. He's got three incredible off-speed pitches off of his fastball, and he throws gas and he commands it. He's not. The walks are still somewhat of an issue,
sure.
right? I think we can all notice that, but that's kind of the only issue I'm noticing here because we can't dock him for not having enough innings up to this point because he's a new starter.
Well,
But
and he
in the
also
innings,
he also leveled up from 96 to 186.
yeah,
He doubled, man.
exactly. So when he's gotten the opportunity to be a healthy starter, he's been a healthy starter.
Yeah.
So this guy is going. I think he's one of the best lefties in Major League Baseball.
I think so. It's one of the more advanced pitch mixes that you'll find in Major League Baseball for somebody that is this new to starting pitching at the Major League level full time, at least. Because he made, what, 23, I think it was 17 appearances out of the Ranger bullpen before the trade, and then he made 12 starts in Kansas City. So this guy, like, his first true starting time came back half of 2023 after that Chapman trade, like you mentioned. But, this guy, like, yeah, he's got all of those plus pitches, but he mixes them so well. It's 40% four seamer, opponents hit 213 against it. And then it's 25% changeup, opponents hit a buck 83 against it. It's 13% slider, opponents hit 210 against it. It's 10% knuckle curve, opponents hit a buck 40 against it. The cutter's like the one that you can just kind of scrap, but like, hey, dude, just replace the cutter usage with more fastball usage because the four seamer's awesome. So there's this advanced pitch mix for a guy that just went from 96 innings to 186 innings, and it's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
technically perfect. Like the delivery is awesome. I love everything there is to love about Reagans. I had him at 9, you had him at 9.
And then the best competition in the playoffs again, 10 innings, 0.9 ERA.
Yeah.
So when he's brought up in a big moment, can this guy deliver? Absolutely, he
Yes.
delivered. So
Yes.
he's checking all the boxes for me, and he's going to be one of the league leaders in strikeouts. And if he's able to limit the walks, he could win a Cy Young. That's how good he is. I
Yeah.
mean, I think the difference between him and Scooble, like Scooble's stuff is a little bit better. And I'm saying a little bit. It's not a lot better. It's a little bit better. And Scooble commands the ball better than him. So
Yep.
those are the things to level up into. We'll talk about Scooble later. Like
Hmm.
he's not that far away from him.
Yeah, but Scoople's like he's on another level right now. But I'm with you. How far away is level 2 from
Exactly.
where Scooble is there?
Yeah. I don't think it's that big of a gap.
I get it. Another lefty here checks in at number 9. It is the reigning National League Cy Young Award winner, Chris Sale of the Atlanta Braves. Leo, actually, you were the high guy with Sale at 6. Leo was at 7. Aram and Eric were at 10. Me and Fink were the low guys at 12. 29 starts last year. He had a 2.38 ERA. He was 18 and 3 in 177 and two-thirds innings. The whip at 1.01, the FIP at 209. Struck out 11 and a half per nine. He walked 2 per nine. I feel like me docking Sale has to do with him turning 36 years old on March 30th. I feel like Father Time could win, and we've seen injuries ravage Sale's entire Red Sox tenure, aside from that 2018 World Series run. I love Sale. He's one of my all-time faves because that was the passing of the baton from Burley to Sale in my childhood fandom of starting pitchers and like who I would go to the ballpark to watch. But it just feels like age is going to win at some point. Now, it took until 40 for Scherzer and Verlander to fall out of the top 10. But Sale, I have no idea. Like, that's the one knock is that he's getting old, but that was an amazing year from him in 2024. And I don't blame you for having him at 6. It looked untouchable.
Yeah, I tried to rank him as high as possible because I'm thinking to myself, like, all right, the reason for ranking Sale a little bit lower is just because he's getting older and he's been hurt in the past,
Yeah.
right? Kind of how you broke it down. And I'm just not willing to buy into that.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to buy into that because, to your point, yes, he has been injured in the past, but would you say that he has a normal arm of a 36-year-old? Like we're talking about Scherzer and Jacob DeGrom. I mean, they aren't known for getting injured. So they are 200 innings, 200 innings, 200 innings. And by the time they are 36 years old, they look like a 36-year-old pitcher, even though both of them, were still good at that age.
Yeah.
So that gives me confidence in Sale, especially because he ended the season so strong. This wasn't a Chris Sale who made all of his money in April, May, and June and then kind of teetered off, velo drop a little bit, and overall put up a good season. No. Pre All-Star break 2.70 ERA, 140 strikeouts and 110 innings. That is so awesome. Post All-Star break 1.86 ERA, 85 strikeouts and 67 innings. So from a run prevention standpoint, he got better as the year went along. I thought he was the second best pitcher in baseball from last year after Tarek Skubal. And the only reason he wasn't quite at Skubal's level was just due to the innings, right? He didn't throw as many innings. He's one of the league leaders in strikeouts. The stuff looked as good as ever. We talk about the Braves being volatile, and we can put Chris Sale in there because of age and because he is a human being just like the rest of us, and age eventually catches up. I don't think it's going to catch up this season.
Yeah, it's tough. Like
Yeah.
I have no idea
And
when
that's
it's
that's
gonna
the
catch
bet
up.
I'm making. And
Yeah,
maybe I'll lose that bet because it's not necessarily a good one,
yeah,
right? Betting
and
on a 36-year-old pitcher with a very violent
delivery.
yeah, delivery. I don't know why that the word
Word
delivery
escaped me.
just left my brain for a second.
Right.
Um, a very violent delivery. Like he's not a guy necessarily you want to bet on, but I was just so like we're talking about favorite watches in baseball. Is he not number two, number three, like up there with the best pitchers to watch? It's just I'm watching a freakazoid throw from an angle that I don't know how any lefty sees. And
No,
even
no
righties
lefties.
had no shot either. It was vintage Sale.
It was White Sox Sale. That's what we watched last year, and this was a guy that had not won a Cy Young award yet, and I'm glad that he got his Cy Young award at that point. But I mean, there's no shot for lefties. Lefties OPS 544 against him, but it's not like righties were that much better either. Like righties had a 596
Yeah.
OPS against him, so he was just slicing and dicing absolutely everybody. I'd prefer that your side of this bet wins. Like I'd prefer if Father Time held off for another year and we get to see peak sale again. I was probably too pessimistic, and the beauty of democracy in this, in the voting process, is that he fell somewhere in between our rankings.
Yeah. And and just to tie a bow on it, I think we both agree with this. You're not saying that you think Sale's going to put up a 3.4 ERA next year. You're just saying that you might not get a full healthy season of Chris Sale, and that's why you're dropping him down.
Yeah, it's health. It's also, he could run into command issues at a certain point. Like he had a perfect year last year. And I'm just saying, like, there's a variety of ways that it isn't a perfect year in
Yeah.
2025.
I think it might be. As long as he's healthy, I think he's going to dominate again. Like, I wouldn't be
Sure.
shocked to see him win another Cy Young. I really wouldn't. I think he's pitching near the top of his game right now, and I think he's going to come out just firing. Just please stay healthy, Sale. All right, number 8, top 10 pitchers list. Logan Webb of the San Francisco Giants. Another year of Logan Webb making 33 starts with 200 innings at a mid 3 ERA, 3.47, right? He's not a huge strikeout guy, but it's all ground balls. And when we're ranking Logan Webb, consistency. Consistency. So if you're a fan of innings eaters, you're going to have Logan Webb higher on your list.
Yeah.
Dating back to the beginning of the 2021 season, Logan Webb has the second most innings at 761, and he's third in the number of quality starts with 77. He also has the fifth best FIP in that span because he pounds the strike zone. He's one of the best strike throwers in baseball and has full command of that strike zone. This past season, he's finished eighth among qualified pitchers in FWAR, fourth year in a row where he's posted a WAR of 4 or higher. And another thing about Logan Webb, he's just 28. I swore he was 30. Swore he was 30.
No,
Feels like
no.
he's been throwing 200 inning seasons for a decade, but he's still just 28 years old. So, right when we're talking about Logan Gilbert being one of the guys who we expect to be a 200 inning guy, like he might be number one in that facet. But I think the issue that sometimes I have with some Logan Webb starts is he is also not immune to some tough road starts, right? He
Sure.
pitches at Oracle. And that's something to look at. He's always been better pitching in San Francisco than he has on the road. But the thing is, it's not, the road splits are not so egregious, right? They're not great, but they're not egregious. And you can also look at the fact that he's not a huge strikeout guy. I think
Yeah.
he's not a huge walk guy either. That's not his game. He's not trying to strike you out. He's trying to go deep into games and get you out on the first or second pitch of the AB when he throws a sinker low and in and you ground out to third base. That's what he wants.
Yes.
That's Logan Webb's game. So I don't expect him to strike out guys. I expect him to fill up the zone and get ground balls, which he has done at an elite rate for since 2021 for basically his entire career.
Yeah. First full season was 2021, a 61% ground ball rate, then a 57% ground ball rate, then a 62% ground ball rate, and then 57% ground ball rate in 2024. He and Framber Valdez are the two best ground ball pitchers that we have in Major League Baseball.
Yep.
Like he leans on sinkers, he leans on horizontal movement, he leans on weak contact on the ground, and that's exactly what Logan Webb gets, and he's gotten since 2021. And he has been the same exact guy for 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you curb his output in his first full season pitching. He upped it from 54 big league innings in 2020 to 148 big league innings in 2021, but it was 148 innings at a 303. Then it was 192 innings at a 2.9. And then it was 216 at a 3.2. And then it was 204 at a 3.5. You know exactly what you're getting. And I value safety here, which is why I had him pretty high, right? I had him at 8. Eric and Fink had him at 7. Leo had him at 6. I lean closer to them because you know you're getting 200 and you know you're getting a 55 to 60% ground ball rate. I know exactly what I'm getting from Logan Webb. And being able to sharpie in numbers is really valuable,
Yeah.
especially when it's at the front of your rotation.
I think so. I was one of the low guys. I had him at 12. So, Mariners fans, right? I was making fun of Logan Gilbert a little bit for those home road splits. Like, let's look at Logan Webb's 2.83 ERA at home, 4.11 on the road. Now, that's not been as consistent with Webb. Normally, he's a little bit better, right? About not being, not having as many rough road starts compared to home. But it was in the numbers last year. And another thing that was in the numbers that was a little bit concerning is just how hard guys were hitting the ball off him. Now, most of it was on the ground, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
But normally, Logan Webb is not in the 23rd percentile in average exit velocity against, right? That's not normal Logan Webb. But he still got his. That's how consistent and good Logan Webb is. That's why he has to continue to rise to the top. Is even in a season where he was allowing harder contact than really ever has, in a season where he put up some of his worst road starts in his career, he threw 200 innings at a 3.47.
Yeah.
So it was still a really good year. But those are just a couple of the reasons I had him a little bit lower. If he's given up that hard a contact, if he's not performing that as well on the road, there's just better pitchers than that at this point. So that's where I'm at him.
Got you.
Your turn for number 7.
My turn for number 7. Okay. Number 7 here is a White Sox turned Red Sox. Our number 7 pitcher in baseball for 2025 is Garrett Crochet of the Boston Red Sox. And Crochet, Aram was actually the high guy at 4. You were second at 5, and I'm sure you thought that was crazy. I was next at 7. Eric and Fink had him at 8. Leo had him at 9. Crochet was the premier strikeout artist in Major League Baseball among starting pitchers last year. 146 innings. He was at 13 strikeouts per 9. And he did it by being a zone pounder. 13 Ks per 9, 2 walks per 9. He was at a 3.58 ERA in 32 starts, a whip at 1.07, a FIP under 2.7. Garrett Crochet was limited last year by the Chicago White Sox after the All-Star break in particular, where he was making 4 inning starts. But how many times did you check on Crochet? Oh, he went 4 innings, but it was 2 hits, no runs, and 8 Ks. He is elite. And I was a little nervous to call him a top 5, top 6 starting pitcher in Major League Baseball. I kind of wish I did because he is disgusting. Like that tier 1 disgusting.
Yep. Sometimes you got to make statements.
Mm-hmm.
And last year, I think our podcast statement was Tarek Skubal. Because Tarek Skubal was pitching in the American League Central. Not a lot of people had watched him. And you could say, well, he had an amazing second half, and the numbers were certainly looking up. But The haters were saying, well, he pitched all against American League Central competition. And then I said, I think he's going to win the Cy Young. And he ended up winning the Cy Young. Garrett Crochet is our next guy, I think, in that type of boat. You look at a 3.58 ERA and you say, guys, this guy is that good, 3.58 ERA. I know the stuff is great, right? I know you guys just talked about all the strikeout stuff. 3.58, he just pitched on the worst team in Major League history. I remember very clearly, and Braves fans, I'm sure, will back me up on this. Remember Aaron Bummer? He pitched like a 5 ERA with that White Sox horrific defense, but all the underlying metrics were awesome. Then he goes over to the Braves, and he's instantly, again, one of the better left-handed relievers in baseball. That's what Garrett Crochet is going to do when he goes to Boston. Even though Boston's not a great defensive team either, but they're certainly going to be better than those White Sox were. Crochet has dominant stuff. That's why when you look at these underlying ERA predictors like FIP, expected ERA, Sierra, XFIP, all these, they're in the twos for a good reason. He's big, huge stuff, right? The stuff resembles his height. It's long levers. It's coming at you. It looks like Sale, even more controlled and coming from a bigger arm. And what's so funny is he's so dominant that he led Major League Baseball in strikeouts per nine among pitchers with at least 130 innings. That's including Skeens too.
Yeah.
Fastball cutter, driving fastballs by people,
Yeah.
by you.
Well, because
So
it's all such a concentrated movement, and I think people want to throw out the Sale comp because it's a big-bodied lefty, and he comes from I guess a lower release, but it's in a different way where
yeah,
Sale is throwing from right field. Crochet, everything is really concentrated, and you see his arm. His arm stays really close to his body, and then it all just shoots toward the plate in one like uniform movement. There's no wasted movement in
hmm
his delivery whatsoever. And that was happening when he was at Tennessee in 2019 and 2020. It's happening now. And you're seeing the guy that went, what, 10th, 11th overall in 2020 as a starting pitcher. This guy's been that. He just hasn't had the opportunity because it was TJ. It was, quick move to the bullpen in 21 to like get there. And in 2020, dude, like he made his debut in Major League Baseball. Let's not forget that. So situationally, he just kind of got screwed. And now we're seeing like the Crochet that the White Sox identified in 2020.
yeah.
And I'm so excited to see what he does at the front of that Red Sox rotation for the next 2 years.
And I'm looking at, right, people might be, well, is he going to be able to throw the innings? Well, in April, it was 6 innings, 6 innings, 5 innings, 6 innings, 6 innings.
He's going to be fine. There are no wasted bullets. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't walk people. He's
Mm-mm.
going to be fine.
And yeah, for those 2 months when he was a legit starter in baseball and when the White Sox were actually letting him go, it was 5 to 7 innings every single time, mostly with 6 innings. And then they limit his innings because they want to trade him. Then they end up
Yeah.
not trading him. And then they still want to limit his innings because they know they're eventually going to trade him. And there's
Yeah.
obviously, you're in the midst of the worst season in MLB history and he's still shoving. I mean, this guy, and I don't remember if it was Lance Lynn. I think it was Lynn who was talking about his mentality and that this guy just wants the ball. And he's trying to absorb every piece of knowledge from all of these starters because he wants to be a starter. He wants to be the guy who's pitching in game 7 of the World Series. He wants to be the guy on opening day. And he's just grinding to get there. And we see the results right now. And now he's going over to Breslow and company with Andrew Bailey, one of the best pitching coaches in Major League Baseball, to unlock even more to show him how to be a starter. And then they signed Walker Buehler, right? And they already just had Tanner Houck, who already made that transition and made it in a great way.
Yeah.
So they have a history of turning relievers slash swingman into electric starters, and they brought in Buehler to help him.
He's
This is the season. He's going to win the
he
Cy Young.
he has been around some awesome pitchers in his pitching maturation. Like he shared a bullpen with Liam Hendricks for a little bit there. That's important.
hmm
But the starting pitchers that he was around as a young big league arm, Carlos Rodon, Lance Lynn, Dylan Cease, and then you make the move to a Bueller. Like these are good people to pick their brains.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, again, it's not just Bueller. Like, I mean, learning from a guy who just did it in Tanner Houck.
I don't know if Crochet is going to learn much from Tanner Houck.
I think that's potentially, I mean, I think there will be conversations with Bailey and Tanner Houck and Bueller where they're chatting it up and forming a plan that's going to win this guy the Cy Young.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to clump Tanner Houck in there, but Yeah, I'm excited to see what Crochet does in Boston. We're gonna get to six in a moment. Before that, quick break.
Number six, the guy that nobody knows where to rank him, Jacob DeGrom of the Texas Rangers. Jacob DeGrom, we all know he's awesome. He's thrown 3 straight seasons of 200 plus innings from 2017 to 2019. Hasn't done that in a while. And since 2021, because he was relatively healthy in 2020, he's thrown nearly 200 innings. In those 200 innings since 2021, he's got a 2.01 ERA with 307 strikeouts and a 200 ERA plus. For reference, Mariano Rivera is the only pitcher in Major League history with a career ERA plus over 200 ever. Starters, relievers, doesn't matter. What I've always felt was wild about DeGrom, because I mean, we could talk about how good he is. He's clearly just, if he's on the field, I think he's still the best pitcher in baseball. Like, I think if it was him versus Skubal, him versus anybody, he's right there. But will he throw enough innings? We don't know. But we just put him at six, right? That's where we aggregated him. When we look at where he was ranked, when I'm looking at the article right here, you had him at 4.
Yeah,
You were the high guy with Eric. Leo and I were the low men at 8. It's just a matter of, can he throw enough innings? But what
being
I
on
was
the
going to
mound.
say, I cut myself off. I just think it's so wild that he's a fastball slider guy. I mean,
Yeah,
the changeup and that curveball are really just taste
taste
breakers.
breakers. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just to throw off hitters' timing.
So
He's just fastball slider, and he's been the most talented pitcher since Kershaw.
here's what makes him four for me. You mentioned since 2021, it's been 197 innings at a 201
Yep,
with 307 strikeouts. So that's 14 Ks per nine.
yep.
You didn't mention the walk number. 307 strikeouts, 24 walks. So when you look at strikeout to walk ratio, this guy is striking out 12.8 batters for every walk issued. Do you know how nuts that is?
That's
Like
historic.
it's next freaking level. Like his back-to-back Cy Young years, he was at 5.8 strikeouts per walk. And now we're talking about a guy that struck out 307 and walked 24.
I know, but it's in 5 starts a year.
I get it. I get it. Totally. But
But maybe.
like I'm not saying he's fixed, but like he's back from Tommy John surgery now. He's got a full off season. If there's any year that he's going to stay healthy, it's this year until something comes up and it nags him again. But like,
So
I mean, he
here's my
got the
issue.
elbow fixed.
Here's
Yeah.
my issue. I want to throw Jack. He's 36. I just ranked
No,
Chris
don't
Sale
care.
6. Yeah, I just
Don't.
talked about how I don't care. But at least Sale's coming off 177, and even the year before that, he threw 100. Like,
That actually makes me more nervous.
this guy,
DeGrom
I
actually
know.
getting cut. DeGrom
Fresh.
actually getting the surgery makes me feel more secure about him having a good 25.
And I'm ranking my top 100 players. It's like,
DeGrom could be 9.
I was like, is he in the 50s? I don't know where to rank him. I have no idea where to put this guy. Because
Yeah.
when he pitches, he's amazing, but he doesn't pitch all that often. And
Yeah.
those 5 starts a year that we get to watch are freaking awesome. And
Hmm.
he goes back in the IL or something. And it's so sad because, again, guy can't control whether he's getting injuries or not. Like, same thing with Trout. These are two of the best baseball players that have played in the 21st century, and we don't have the luxury of being able to watch them play all that much. So when we do, it's incredible, and the numbers reflect it. It's not that in this time period where he's been injured, he's leveled off a little bit. Not at all.
Yeah.
Like, he's unbelievably elite in those
Yeah.
innings that he's thrown.
Yeah.
So it's like, is he going to throw enough innings? And I still think that the over under on his amount of innings this year should be 80.
Wow.
And I think that's even being generous.
Wow.
Um, but again, if he goes over that, he's going to be a top 5 guy.
Yeah.
Even in 100 innings. Remember that
Yep.
year where he threw 92 innings? On this podcast, I was saying I think he has an argument for Cy Young. I mean, those 92
It was
innings.
92 innings at a 108 ERA, a whip of 0.55, 146 punchouts to 11 walks in those 92 innings. That was in 2021. In 2021, opponents hit 129 against him with a 402 OPS.
Opponents at 133 against Blake Snell, by the way. Just saying.
Okay,
Okay.
gotcha. But the OBP,
Yeah, the
the
OVP.
OBP against him was 160.
Is he like the Schwarber of pitchers still? A little bit? Like
No,
hitting 190 but getting on base at
absolutely.
no, but he's better than Schwarber. He is. But it's in that breath.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's so funny looking at his 2024 stats. 3 games started, 10 innings, 10 and 2/3, 2 earned, 14 Ks.
Right.
Like, what am
That's
I
it.
supposed to do after a guy
It's
throws
what
10
14
innings?
Ks, one walk, right?
Yeah, what am I supposed to do after a guy throws 10 innings?
I don't know.
I don't know either. But this is
I
where
have
we
no
ranked
idea.
him. Honestly, I don't even know if Rangers fans know where to rank him.
No, I don't think so. They
Nobody
have so
does.
much unknown, man. Like
Yeah.
I don't know about him. I don't like I'm so excited about a full year of DeGrom if we get it. I'm
Yeah.
so excited for a full year of Kamar Rocker, but like how's Kamar Rocker going to be?
Yeah.
Like, there's a ton of questions around the Texas Rangers.
So many. Not that many questions about our next guy, though.
Nope. I think you know exactly what you're getting. Number 5 is Corbin Burns, the newest Arizona Diamondback. I had him at 6. So did Aram. So did Eric. Leo, the high guy, at 4. Fink had him at 5. You were the low man at 7, but it all ranked from 4 to 7. 194 innings at a 2.92 ERA in his only year with Baltimore. A 1.10 whip. He struck out 8.5 per 9. He walked 2.2 hitters per 9. Burns won the Cy Young in 167 innings in 2021. But that's because he struck out 12 and a half hitters per 9 and had a 1.63 FIP. Since then, he's been really consistent. 202 innings at a 2.94. Then 193 innings at a 3.39. Then 194 innings at a 2.92. I think you know what you're getting from Burns. And it's not the loud K stuff that we saw in his Cy Young season, but it's so reliable. And you know that this guy's going to flirt with 190, 200 innings in a given year, and you're going to get a high twos ERA. And that makes a top, you know, it probably makes a tier 2 arm in Major League Baseball.
I think a reason why I was a little bit lower than consensus here, because he's being ranked at 5 and I'm at 7 and I'm the low man, is I do remember at the end of last season didn't quite look like himself. And it's kind of reflected in the numbers, right? He was awesome pre All-Star break, 2.43 ERA, but in the second half, 3.69 ERA.
Yeah.
And the strikeout stuff just wasn't there last season, right? When Corbin Burns throws 194 innings, we expect 200 or more strikeouts, not 181. So that's why I was a little bit lower. But here's the thing, and here's why I'm not that much lower. Posted one of the lowest hard hit rates of his entire career. So he sacrificed a little bit of strikeout stuff for a little bit more weak contact. That's what at least showed up in the numbers. So if I'm getting a little bit more ground balls, if I'm getting more innings because he's not getting to 2 strike counts as much, he's getting the guy out on the first pitch or the second pitch or going through guys a little bit more efficiently.
I'll make that swap.
That's why the ERA was 2.92,
Yeah.
right? In the year where he had 200 strikeouts, even the year in 2022 where he had 243, 294 and 339. He was 292 last year. So there were a couple things which made me a little bit nervous about Burns being that clear, even in the top 3, because that's mostly where he's been. But I think he's just dropping slightly because it's not quite, the stuff isn't quite as electric as it used to be. But he's still producing like that top 3 guy. I think
Yeah.
that's why I'm just a slightly lower.
I think we're going into 25, and we're going to get to these guys in a minute, but we're going into 25, I think, with a clear cut top 3. And that's what our voting reflected. Like
Yeah.
everybody, nobody in the top 3 got a single vote outside the top 3.
Mhm.
Like our 3 best pitchers got every single first, second, and third place vote in this. So I think that's our clear cut tier 1. And I think it's Burns, DeGrom, Crochet, and the next guy that we're going to talk about that are tier 2.
Yeah. And the next guy we're going to talk about is Garrett Cole, the New York Yankees. And when we're looking at where everybody ranked him, Fink and I both had him at 4. The rest of the panel had him at 5. And I was happy about that because I think you can look at Garrett Cole and say, well, last year he was coming off elbow inflammation, but among pitchers with at least 300 innings since 2023, he's first in ERA at 2.87. First. He won a Cy Young in 2023. Again, but what happened last year? Elbow inflammation creeps up in spring training, forcing him to debut in June, and it takes him a little while to get comfortable. Right? Pre All Star break, 5.40 ERA. I'm rubbing my elbow as I talk because when I was watching him, it didn't seem like the same Garrett Cole, right? The strikeout stuff was definitely not there. He
Yeah.
wasn't being as aggressive within the zone. It just seemed like he didn't trust his stuff like a guy like Garrett Cole normally does. And then he started trusting his stuff. Post All Star break, 73 innings, 2.76 ERA. And then in the playoffs, he threw 29 innings, pitched to a 2.17. We're back. There was a pitch usage tweak that I noticed with Cole. Slider normally around 21%, dips to 15%, started throwing that Yankee cutter a lot more and uses his knuckle curve more often. He's kind of taken that transition, kind of like Burns, even CC Sabathia did with the Yankees, right? If you're not striking out guys at the elite rate that you're used to, right? We're used to Houston Garrett Cole or early years of Yankee Garrett Cole where he's striking out 11 or 12 per nine. He's not going to do that anymore. It's mostly going to be around nine, but how can I produce more soft contact in order to get all of my innings? And I think
Yep.
that's his recipe here. And again, second in innings since 2017.
Yep.
And in 2 years from 2022 to 2023, he was second in innings, 409 with 479 strikeouts.
Yep.
So if his elbow is feeling good, and all reports looks like it does, he should be 200 innings again, low to mid threes, 200 strikeouts. And I think that's what we can expect from Garrett Cole. And maybe even better, right? I'm saying low to mid threes ERA. In the second half of the season, he was 2.76, and in the playoffs, he was 2.19.
I
So
think
maybe
he
it's
can
even
be
better
high
than that.
twos. I
Yeah.
think he can be 190 innings in the high twos.
Yeah. And so we're still fully in on Garrett Cole. I've seen some lists kind of starting to drop him down, and I think people are harping too much on the lack of strikeout stuff.
Yeah,
Because
I'm
even with the
totally with
lack
you.
of even with the lack of strikeout stuff, he's still producing. He's still preventing runs at an elite level. If the strikeout stuff were accompanied with a dip in ERA or a dip in, some of these other underlying ERA predictors, I might agree with you, but it didn't really show up in there. It's the only way it shows up in is because the lack of strikeouts. So the FIP or the XFIP, Sierra, these underlying ERA predictors who love strikeouts might dip him a little bit, but it's not enough to get him out of the top five. And
Yeah,
I had him at 4.
yeah, I'm totally with you, man. Now do we get to tier one?
He still also, how many pitchers do you want over him in Game 7 of the World Series?
Uh, if DeGrom is healthy, probably four. The three that we're going to talk about right now,
Yeah,
and then DeGrom.
I agree with you. Yeah,
Yeah. Should we get into tier one?
let's get into tier 1.
Okay, so kicking us off in tier one is number three on our list for 2025, and it's Paul Skeens of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Skeens, in his first 23 big league starts, 133 innings. He was 11 and 3 with a 1.96 ERA, a whip at 0.95, a FIP under 2.5. He K'd 11 and a half per nine. He walked 2.2 hitters per nine. Leo, Eric, Peter had him at 3. Fink and Aram had him at 2. And I had him at 1. And I'm going to make my case. And you poke a hole in it. Since he debuted, he was the only starter in Major League Baseball with a sub 2 ERA. He developed an 80 grade pitch over the course of one season. It's a 95-mile-an-hour splinker. He can go get 102 on the 95th pitch of the night if he needs it. His slider has multiple looks, and they're all disgusting. He threw his changeup 10 times some nights, and it looked gross. He's 6'6", 250, and it's crossfire at 101. And might I remind you that this was his second year pitching full time, and he was a Cy Young finalist and won the Rookie of the Year. His first year pitching full time, he set the SEC strikeout record and went number 1 overall. And after year 2 of pitching full time, he's on the cover of a freaking video game. He might just be scratching the surface of who he is as a pitcher. A lot of these other guys have been pitching full time for a decade. Plus, he's been doing it for 2 years.
I can't poke a hole in anything you said other than let's see him do it again.
Okay, yeah. No, that's the only rebuttal that I think is fair.
That's the only rebuttal I have because you listed off a ton of numbers. You also listed off accolades and everything that he's done. Just to further your point, watching him, he looks like the best pitcher in baseball.
Yeah.
Like when you turn on a Pirates game and you watch Paul Skeens, you turn on a Phillies game and watch Zach Wheeler, you turn on a Tigers game and watch Tarek Skubal, Yankee game, Garrett Cole, all these guys. He looks like the best pitcher. He looks impossible to hit because he's coming at you with so many elite offerings and he's not walking anybody. My only my only hole is he just the two guys above him. One is the greatest, arguably the greatest postseason pitcher of all time, and also coming off an elite season where he's setting career highs over a great year or over a great career. And then the other guy was the best pitcher in baseball in its
Yeah.
totality, who also then dominated in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So it's just a difference of I watch these guys do it, and we know that the pitching position is a volatile one. That's the only reason I had him at 3. You're splitting hairs here with the top 3. So I can endorse a Paul Skeens #1 because I think where you're coming from is he was the best pitcher in baseball that I watched last year. And I can't disagree with you.
Yeah.
It was that good.
You mentioned he doesn't walk people. If he found himself behind 2-0 or found himself in a 3-ball count, he
Who
just peppered
cares?
101
Yeah.
until he beat you.
He's throwing
Like,
that splinker for strikes too.
yeah, dude. Like, it was crazy watching him because you can actually like you can see the plan of attack unfold, and he prioritizes getting ahead, right? He prioritizes 0-1, he prioritizes 0-2 or 1-2. If he doesn't get there, if he fails in getting there and he falls behind 2 balls and a strike or 3 balls and a strike, he's going to kill you with 101 down the pipe, or he's going to splinker you to death, and he's not going to miss, and he's not going to give you a free pass. Like, there were no uncompetitive plate appearances that he had where it's like, oh, he just didn't have it against that guy. It was he's going to give everybody his best fight. And like, I don't know, man, it could look like bias, but I don't think it's bias. Like, I watched him and I was like, who is touching this? And the fact that Jackson Holiday said it looked like 110 miles an hour in spring breakout, how many other guys are thinking it looks like 120?
I know. And I was watching Peyton's video. Make sure you guys are following at Big League Analysis, whether that's on Instagram or on TikTok. He does a phenomenal job editing this show, and he also does a phenomenal job making baseball videos. So make sure to go check him out. Um, he was recapping those at bats between Skeens and Otani. And remember when that first at bat where Skeens just sat him down with
Just
four
killed him.
seamers,
Killed
killed
him.
him, and then Otani adjusted, and he gave
Yeah.
him one too many fastballs at the top, but Otani went yard.
Do you remember what Skeen said after the fact?
No,
He said that was just big on big. Like
yeah,
he effectively tipped his cap to Otani and said, "Listen, like that was my best stuff against his best stuff, and his best stuff beat me the second time, but I beat him the first time."
and I was just so impressed with Skeens. Like he could have started throwing him a bunch of breaking balls, but he was like, "No, I dare you." And Shohei Otani, the most talented baseball player we have ever seen, clipped one.
Yeah.
But just that battle felt like the best on the best. But he's got to do it again for me to rank him #1.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. It's like
So
do it again.
so if he does this again, and by do it again, I'm talking, I think he can throw 200 innings this year. Like, what's stopping him from doing that? He threw 130 and he didn't get up until mid-May.
Well, here's who he's going up against.
Okay.
Number 2 on our list is Zach Wheeler of the Philadelphia Phillies. Dating back to the beginning of the 2021 season, no pitcher in the sport has accumulated more FWAR than Zach Wheeler. He's third in innings since 2021. He's got an ERA at 2.91. 4 of 5 seasons with Philly, he's got an ERA under 3. And last year, he posted a 28.5% strikeout rate. That's the second highest of his career. And he's the best postseason pitcher that we have in Major League Baseball. 2.18 ERA in 70 innings in the postseason with the second best whip of all time at 0.725. And when we look at where everybody ranked him, you and Aram both had him at 3. Eric and I and Leo both had him at 2, and Fink had him at #1. So that's who he's coming up against. A guy who's coming off a 2024 campaign where he threw 200 innings to a 2.57 with a 0.96 whip and 10 strikeouts per 9. So it's like if Wheeler does that again, which I fully think that he can, because he was displaying some of the best stuff that he has throughout his career,
Yeah.
would Paul Skeens even be better than that still? Let's say Skeens throws 200 innings at a 2.3 and Wheeler does 200 at a 2.6, is Paul Skeens now still better than Wheeler? I don't know, because we talk about guys, game 7 of the World Series, who do you want on the mound? There's no debate for me.
Yeah.
Zach Wheeler.
Yeah.
I will go to war with that man. So that's still going to tug at my heartstrings even when we're ranking guys next year, because the Phillies are going to make the playoffs and he's going to keep dominating again. So then what do we go back and say? I don't know. Like Paul Skeens is going to have like a historic season for to pass Wheeler in my eyes, and even the next guy. But the thing is, do we not think that Skeens can do that?
I think you can do that.
I think he could do that. So that's what I'm thinking about here. It's just he's been too damn good for too long, and when the lights are bright, he's better. I mean, he has a better ERA in the postseason than he does in the regular season in 70 innings, and was great last year again.
Yeah.
Career highs last year. Not quite. I mean, 28 and a half. That's his second highest strikeout rate he's ever posted in a season. Hard hit rates, elite, everything, phenomenal. 200 innings too. He's perfect. I freaking love Wheeler.
Yeah.
Love him so
I,
much.
I get it. Like all three of these guys for me are perfect in their own
Yes.
rights. Like
Yes.
it's like Skeens is perfect somehow for me. Like looks better than Wheeler's perfect, but like Skubal's perfect also looks a little bit better than Wheeler's perfect, but Wheeler is still perfect. So like it's especially in this, I honestly could have flipped a coin. I have
Me too.
zero rebuttal to what you just said. And Game 7 of the World Series, I'm with you. Martians have the death beam. Aside from Andre Iguodala, I want Zach Wheeler on the mound.
Like even doing this podcast right now, I've gone over my starting pitching rankings a bunch of times and I came to the conclusion that Wheeler wasn't number one. But now, even talking to you, I want to rank him one.
Yeah, it's like
Like
he's one.
even doing after
Yeah.
all this research, just saying it out loud, I'm like, wait a minute, he is one.
You make the argument for everybody. It's like, okay, stuff in a vacuum. Tarek Skubal last year was the best pitcher on the planet because he did it over 162. He was more valuable to the Detroit Tigers than really anybody was to their team, other than I think Bobby Witt Jr. to Kansas City.
Yeah.
Like that's the level of value Skubal provided a postseason team. Wheeler, he's the best big game pitcher we've seen in a very, very, very long time. Maybe starting pitcher ever, like you just laid out. Skeens, since he came up, he had a sub 2 ERA. Like, again, there's an argument to be tailored for all three of these guys. So I have no rebuttal. I love Zach Wheeler. I
Yeah.
just
My
flipped a
only
coin, and
rebuttal,
unfortunately, he came up tails both times.
and I think that's why Skeens came up three for me, because I was like, the one rebuttal is do it again, which is a
Yeah.
fair rebuttal. Like I don't
Yeah.
have a rebuttal for Wheeler. I don't have a rebuttal for Scooble.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
get it.
why it was three.
I get it. So, yeah, Wheeler is two, but let's go to the best pitcher in baseball for the 2025 season. It is the reigning American League Cy Young Award winner, Tarek Skubal of the Detroit Tigers. Me, I had him at two. Fink had him at three. You, Aram, Eric, and Leo had him at one. 31 starts, 192 innings on a team that just snuck into the wild card. He was 18 and 4 with a 2.39, a whip at 0.92. He K'd nearly 11 per nine. He walked 1.5 batters per 9 innings. The fastball is crazy. The changeup is next level. His ability to command the strike zone is unmatched. He led Major League Baseball in 3 pitch punchouts by a very wide margin. The amount of good morning, good afternoon, good night plate appearances that you saw against Tarek Skubal was astounding. He is dominant. There's no denying it. And he was, again, I'll say it, like he was the most valuable pitcher in Major League Baseball last year, and it wasn't even close. And I think the Dodgers would still be in a really good spot without Shohei Ohtani. I think the Yankees would still be in a really good spot without Aaron Judge and Juan Soto compared to Tarek Skubal and the Tigers and Bobby Witt of the Royals. That's the level of value that Skubal provided.
So we can go over all the regular season numbers. I mean, he was number one in basically all everything. I mean, ERA predictors freaking loved him because he strikes out the world, doesn't walk a soul. And those are just the numbers. Like you watch Tarek Skubal pitch, and it's this big, burly lefty with, again, long levers, kind of similar to a Garrett Crochet that's just firing elite pitches wherever he wants in the strike zone, because it's one thing to throw strikes and it's another thing to command the strike zone. right? It's one thing to throw a fastball for a strike, and it's another thing to paint it on the black. It's one thing to throw a changeup down, and it's another thing to throw a changeup on the black, right? Or create a perfect tunnel with his breaking ball to his fastball. That's why Tarek Skubal is so freaking tough to hit. And then when the lights were on in the playoffs, first start against those Astros, the Dynasty Astros, 6 innings shutty, 6 Ks, 1 walk. Then he goes up against Cleveland, division rival. They've seen him plenty of times. Elite team against left-handed pitching last year. 8 strikeouts, 7 shutty. Then he faces Cleveland again, 4 shutout. And then Lane Thomas clips him for a grand slam. So it looks like 6 innings, 5 earned.
Yeah.
And his ERA is still 2.37 throughout that. So he made one mistake to Lane Thomas. Now, to Wheeler's credit, he doesn't really make any mistakes. Like in 70 innings, he hasn't really done that. But what I will say is it was as good as advertised as it was during the regular season and then in the playoffs. And again, like Cleveland was a great offense. People were just disrespecting the Central last year. Cleveland had a great offense last year, and they've seen him plenty of times, and they were great against lefties. And he just dominated, except for that one bad pitch to Lane Thomas. God, he was good last year. So, so good. And again, the eye test matches it.
Yeah, dude. I don't know. Do you have any like sweeping, fiery hot take regarding Tarek Skubal in 25 or no? Because that's really the only thing left on Skubal. Just do it again. Have
I
that
don't
value again.
I don't think I have a sweeping hot take. I think he gets to 200 innings this year. I bet that's going to be a goal for him, right? If
Yeah.
we were to interview him, I bet his number one goal is to go for 200 innings. I think he's going to be in the mid twos. I think he's going to strike out the world. I don't think he's going to walk anybody. I wouldn't say he gets better. That might be a career year for him,
Yep.
or it might just be much of the same. And I don't even think if he regresses a little bit, what is he regressing to?
Yeah.
2.7? He's just too good. It's too good of stuff in the zone all the time.
Yeah.
So unless his delivery, I remembered it this time, gets out of whack or something and the command gets away from him, but that I'm just inventing ways for him to struggle. He hasn't showed any of this. I'm just inventing it out of my own mind.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say I have a sweeping hot take. I would just say he's the best. That's
I
it.
understand.
Yeah.
I
But my
understand.
sweeping hot take for the episode, though, I guess, is Crochet winning Cy Young.
Yeah, I get it.
Hmm.
Like it makes a lot of sense. And hey, you called the shot on Skubal, and it feels like Crochet is a similar shot called this
Yeah,
year. Okay, let's talk to Crochet's teammate, shall we?
that'd be pretty cool. But before that, our last break.
What's up, Mr. Red Sox? I've heard like 10 people call you Walker Buehler to this point. I've also heard you mention Pirates Cove Miniature Golf Course, which was my Cape Cod experience, and I'm sure it was yours as well. But how you doing, man? Good to chat with you now that you got a squad for 25. And how about that squad, man? You and Crochet. This is a fun off season, dude. How you feeling?
No, I'm good. Things are good. I think we're gonna head out this weekend and get down to Florida and sort of get going. But no, quick off season. You get back November 8th and we leave February 8th. So quick little turnaround, but no, things are good.
And we were talking pre-record about your background. I mean, no wonder you have a huge smile. You signed a new deal with the Boston Red Sox, but also behind you is about 75,000 bottles of bourbon and 2 World
Oh,
Series trophies. We were even joking that we can't, those ones that they give out for the first 10,000 fans, those aren't quite the same.
yeah. No, they're a little bit bigger and they're a little heavier.
Man, hey, how is that a shipping process? Like, did it just show up at your door one day, or was it, you know what, I'm gonna be aware, I've got the tracking number, I want to see this thing from start to
No,
finish?
my wife did it kind of on her own and ordered it. We got one of them. We got the one in 2020 as a wedding gift from kind of a Cairo that we work with a ton.
Hmm.
He bought us one, and then my wife got me the one from this year. But yeah, just showed up in a big box one day. They're replicas. They're not the full.
Of course.
Some guys I do know have bought like the full on Tiffany and Company, crazy expensive. Shows up in a Brinks truck one. These aren't quite that. So, but they look pretty good.
Man,
And
I
you got to
love
be
it.
excited for multiple reasons to join the Red Sox. Like the Red Sox, they feel like the team that is on the up and up. I'm sure that was a part of the reason for signing there. Like he's talking about Crochet, but Tanner Houck has really developed into a good starter, like Cutter Crawford has as well. And then they add you, and they're getting back Liam Hendricks. They sign Roldis Chapman to lock down the ninth, and then I have a slew of young prospects coming up through the
Yeah.
farm offensively to also just aid Rafael Devers, players like that. Like outside of just it's the Boston Red Sox, it's a good team. Like speak to the future of what you saw with Boston and a big reason why you signed there.
Yeah, I mean, you even in that little summation there, you forget Brian Bello.
Yeah. Yep.
Also, Patrick Sandoval signed with us, should be back kind of near the end of the year. So, yeah, there's just a lot of upside. I've known Lucas Giolito for a long time, known Trevor Story for a long time, and obviously excited to play with those guys. And it's a fun team. I think being one of the older guys on that team will be kind of a different thing for me, and obviously a crazy cool environment to play every day. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. Everyone keeps talking about LA and all the stuff they're doing this offseason, and that's great. And I think it's great for the game. But at the end of the day, going to Boston and kind of experiencing something a little bit different, I think was what we wanted to do and something my family and I are really excited about.
What did you want to hear in free agent pitches from teams? I assume you met with multiple teams before settling on Boston, but is it, hey, here's how we would work with you, or is it this is our organizational direction? Take a look at Roman Anthony hitting bombs. This is really exciting. Was did you prioritize wanting to learn about the organizational infrastructure and the prospects coming up that'll help out, or was it how are you going to help me unlock the best version of me moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. Obviously, when you're in kind of a 1 year scenario, right, which most of my offers were kind of that way. I think largely you're looking for teams that can develop and help you kind of become, in my case, kind of get back to what I used to do and in terms of the success that I was having. And so that's a big part of it. And I thought Andrew Bailey was one of the better guys that I spoke to and kind of enjoyed what he had to say. So some of the teams are very secretive. We have a plan, but we're not going to tell you it and blah blah
Right.
blah. But Boston was pretty transparent, and I think at the end of the day, baseball is one of those games where like you want the best guys to be good, or you want guys that have been good to stay good, and so that kind of transparency was like, listen, we've played against you. We want you to be good again. Here's our thoughts. If you want to kind of pursue them with us, we would love that. And just made it kind of simple for me to say I wanted to be a part of it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and have kind of been implementing some of that stuff kind of in this off season and feeling good about it.
Can you speak to anything that Craig Breslow might have preached to you when trying to get you over to Boston? Because he's clearly a brainiac pitching lab genius,
Yeah.
and we've seen what he's done in such a short time with that pitching staff. Was there anything specific where he said, "This is how we can help you"? Because obviously you're going over there to help a team win, but that includes you getting the best out of your own abilities.
Yeah, I mean, he keeps, we've kept in really close contact over the past couple of months, just more me bothering him about trying to get him to sign my buddies and stuff like that. So we've talked more about that. It was funny the other day. I sent him something about somebody. He was like, "You're starting to concern me." I was like, "No, don't worry. I'm not asking for backup. I just want some buddies over here." So no, we've been having fun with that, and just kind of getting to know each other. I like to play a little GM. Some people have said I'm not very good at it, but that's fine. Um, so no, it's been fun.
I would ask who has said you're not very good at it, but I assume it's the people that you're trying to convince. It's like, you know what? I think this would be a good move.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is only my second kind of run through with it, and he hasn't told me I'm shit at it yet. So
Good.
it only leaves kind of one culprit.
That's awesome. I'm curious about the East Coast transition because you're a Lexington dude going from LA to Boston.
Yeah.
Um, are you nervous at all for that, or is it just, you know what, I'm going to play ball and wherever I can do it, I'm going to do it?
I mean, you guys know me well enough to know that the amount that I ended up liking living in LA was kind of surprising.
You don't rub me as an LA guy, but it's also like not a Boston guy thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be very easy to categorize me closer to a Boston guy than an LA guy. I did end up really enjoying living in LA and a lot of the stuff that comes with that. But No, I mean it feels like I'm kind of coming at least a little bit closer to home, and I played with a ton of guys from Massachusetts in college, and we recruited up there really heavy and spent some time in the Cape Cod League. So, small differences, maybe the accent and stuff like that, but largely, kind of more my people, I would think.
Have you hit up Ben Affleck and Matt Damon yet? I saw Jeremy Strong was in the last Duncan commercial. You could be in the next one.
No, I haven't really talked to anyone. I know Mark Wahlberg commented on a bunch of my stuff when I posted, which was kind of funny. So, I'm bringing some of the LA guys back to Boston with me, I guess.
Good.
I think it's time to talk about our top 10 starting pitchers and get Walker's reaction because all this Boston talk is going to make me vomit as a Yankee fan. And just
Whatever.
imagining him shoving it down us for 30, like for all these starts, it's just like, God, it's going to suck. But let's talk about our top 10 because we
All right.
sent you over our list.
I'm looking at it.
We have our top 10. You already had a couple of problems with it, which is fine because there are so many great pitchers in Major League Baseball, right? The right Sandy is in the 20s, right? He won a unanimous Cy Young 2 years ago. That just speaks to the talent kind of at this position. So you've got our top 10. And
Yep.
instead of saying this guy should be taken out, I want to hear some guys that you think are truly top 10 guys that maybe we didn't include in our top 10 and why. Like who's the
Yeah. So you
first
guys
name that comes?
You guys sent me 25. My
Yep.
first thing that I do when I'm looking at this list, I'm taking every guy out that didn't play last year.
Fair.
Get it.
I think it kind of evens the field. There's obviously, and I have a lot of personal dealing with this. I don't know if I would have made the 25 list before last season, but things can go a little awry after
Yes.
surgery like this. It is what it is. So right off the top, McClanahan out of there,
Sandy.
Strider,
Sandy.
Otani,
Yeah.
Sandy. So now you're kind of dwindling down, right?
Right.
And some of these guys move up, blah, blah, blah. I think it is hard to not have Max Fried in there.
Hmm.
Maybe a personal thing. I've played against him so many times in the playoffs, kind of seen what that can look like. Um, yeah, it's an interesting one. There's different ways to look at it, right? There's guys that you would want to throw one game or a game seven
Right.
or just a random game. Or you know what I mean? Or you look at a guy that I need 180 innings out of three. Who has the most percentage chance of doing that? Then you look at ceilings, floors, stuff like that. So it's kind of a weighted list, right? You could weight them kind of however you want. Um,
So I'm curious, and I feel like
even right at the top. Zach Wheeler right now, big game, playoff games, probably my number one guy.
yeah.
But that's implying that Jacob deGrom is not healthy in the midst of a crazy season, right? Because he's had those couple of years that he hasn't been out there as much. That happens. Been through it. So I don't know. It's an interesting deal. I think there's certain times that Michael King might be the best guy in baseball,
Right.
Yeah.
but there's certain times that maybe not, or 1 year, and maybe his first year starting, he rode it kind of through the whole season, and then we don't know what happens next year, right? So there's all these kind of ways to look at it.
So I'm curious, like I think I approached it as okay, I need 175 innings at a low to mid twos, right? That's who I view as a top three arm in baseball. And then I look, deeper into the top 25. I'm quick to side with a guy like Luis Castillo, who has given you 190 innings at a low threes over a guy that like has louder stuff and will, actually K 11 hitters per nine instead of 7.5 or eight, whatever it is. But I really value reliability. And it is an individual thing. Like from a pitcher, what is kind of the criteria when you say, okay, this guy could be a top 10 arm in baseball because? Is it reliability over everything or is it stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a floor of quality, and then you kind of start layering the reliability and the reliability plus like the consistency of it, the quality, inconsistency. Like to me, the big boy seasons look like Clayton did for 6 years, right?
Yeah.
It's 220 innings, it's 270 punchies, it's low two every fifth, that kind of stuff. Now, then you obviously have like the different criteria examples of like how dominating can a guy be? Like Glass is on there, can be as good as anyone in baseball at any given day. Um, you just have these different kind of criteria, right? And so I don't know. Wheeler's hard for me to put anybody above Wheeler. Obviously, Scooball had the huge year last year and Skeens as well. So those are kind of what they are. I think, perennial number one for the past 4 or 5 years be Garrett Cole. I think it's difficult given the first time he's ever kind of had any injury stuff, wasn't quite as dominating last year. Obviously, had a really, really good playoffs and stuff like that. But um, he was the first one that I was like, I'm surprised you had him that high, which is hard to
Mm.
say because he has been probably the best guy in baseball for the past 5 years.
Yeah, I think that to Jack's point, it's like I feel like I know that Garrett Cole is going to come out here. Of course,
Right.
not looking at injury, but to Garrett Cole's credit, he's been healthy for,
Yeah.
a lot of the last decade. So I feel confident that Garrett Cole is going to come out next year and throw 200 innings at it like a
Right.
3.5. And I don't know how many other pitchers I can
Right.
say that with. But for example, my top three, Scooble, Wheeler, Skeens.
Yeah.
How the hell would you rank those guys? Because Scooble is coming off the unanimous Cy Young,
Mhm.
was probably the best pitcher overall in baseball last year by the numbers. And then the eye test certainly matches it because he's 98 at the top of the zone. He's throwing it wherever he wants. Wheeler has been the model of consistency and was one of the best pitchers in baseball. And then you watch Paul Skeens, and you don't have to look at any number because the
Yep.
eye test just tells you that this is such an insane talent that he has to be within the top pitchers in baseball. So, how would you go about ranking those three?
I have Wheeler above the other two simply because I know what he's done in the playoffs, as well as my belief in the strength of those divisions, if that
Mm,
makes. I personally believe Zach Wheeler probably beat more playoff teams than the other guys last year.
mm,
That would be kind of my thing. I also think I personally like the age-based one. So if we go 28 and under, 28 to 34, and you have like your top five pitchers, because then you're looking at guys that are doing things a lot more similarly, right? Jared Jones for Pittsburgh example. The ceiling is as high as anyone. Going into Pittsburgh, I wasn't sure which one between him and Skeens that I was going to like better. Skeens obviously is incredibly impressive and had the season, and Jones had some injury stuff and whatever. But watching him on TV, I wasn't sure which one when we went to Pittsburgh who I would like better, right? So the rankings kind of go a little bit differently if you have them grouped on kind of those criteria, I think.
mm.
Who were other guys that jumped out at you? Because Jared Jones is a guy that I thought about for a minute just because of the ceiling, and it's like, okay,
Mhm.
this is a freak fastball. This is something that
Yeah.
you can really only compare to Strider, and even then, like I don't know, they're swimming in very uncharted waters when it comes to fastball quality. Were there other guys that jumped out to you this past year, maybe even the year before, that it's like, okay, they have that ability. Just got to see a little bit more of it for me to consider you, top whatever arm in baseball.
Yeah, I think Tanner Hawk is a guy that I would put in that conversation. Um, I'm just kind of going through teams. I think Carlos Rodon could be in that conversation pretty easily.
Hmm. I
Um,
know you love Gallon, and like I'm really, really high on
yeah,
Gallon, but I think Gallon in the right year could be in that
yeah,
conversation.
no, I would agree with that
I think
100%.
another one, Yamamoto, could take another step and just
Yeah,
freak everybody out.
no, I would agree with that. I am surprised you guys don't have Sasaki on here in some form.
Just haven't seen it yet, and
Neither
there
Yeah,
was
did
a
I.
little
everything you've seen is perfect. I
a
mean,
little drop off in stuff last year. It just
yeah,
wasn't the same 100. It was 97. I mean, it's still electric. It's still
yeah,
electric.
but it's one of probably 480 pitches in the big leagues, the splitter.
Yeah.
Solid.
So,
Yeah.
um,
What are the other 80 pitches in baseball right now?
Class A cutter,
Ma-
Helsley fastball probably.
Mm.
Mason Miller.
Yeah, it's firm. I've never seen the metrics on it. These other guys, I've kind of seen what they look like.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
A guy you love. I mean, Lugo's curveball is insane.
yeah,
I don't
but
know if it's 80.
no, it's not 80 because it's not hard enough to be an 80. I mean, it's probably a 70.
Yeah.
I think Morton has a 70 curveball.
Devin Williams probably has an 80 changeup.
Probably.
Yeah, I would say I would put that up there.
But they're few and far
Yeah.
between.
I mean, it's hard. Yeah, there's not many of them. I think after last season, you would put Skubal Cedar at like the 70, 75
Yeah.
kind
Would
of.
you call Logan Webb or Frember Valdez's sinkers? Just
No,
their ability to keep the ball on the ground so at such an elite level for so long, you wouldn't put that there?
no, I think contact style pitches kind of
Hmm.
top out at 65, 70. I think that's like the value. That's why baseball has changed, right? Is because swing and miss is that 10 to 15% better than everyone else or whatever, you know? Because a sinker, you can have a really bad day. If you have an 80 pitch, like you're really not gonna have many bad days with that. You're probably gonna get beat on the other things every time.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, performance wise, there's a lot of pitches that play like 80s that metrically wouldn't be. And so I think you kind of bring those back a little bit on this grading thing because 80 should be something that's like perfect and perfect performance, I would say.
Yeah.
One guy who flashed 80 grade strikeout stuff last year, your
Uh-huh.
new teammate, 12 and a half strikeouts per nine, Garrett Crochet. I ranked him fifth. I don't care. I mean, it's
Yeah, I mean it's
you
up
look at the
there.
numbers and you could say a
It's
3.5.
similar. It's just
Yeah.
it's the unknown of starting a second time, second season, third season, these guys that kind of have gone from reliever to start. It's just hard. And I think Garrett may have the highest ceiling on the list, especially of guys that we're not really talking about much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean that's like on paper, that's like the only concern. He's a
Yeah.
freak. I know him a little bit. He's an animal.
Freakazoid. I mean, he 209 strikeouts last year, and when I was watching him with the White Sox, I mean, the defense certainly didn't do him any favors. So it's
Right.
hard to look at an ERA and say you can dock him for that. And then
He's
No.
also
he was shoving for months, and then the trade deadline comes. They're thinking about trading him. They're thinking about not trading him. They start limiting his innings, and at this point, in the White Sox season, they're like 20 and 140. So there's no real reason to go out and win games either. So like the back 2 months, I kind of throw out the window, and I look at the first 4 months, that transition from being a bullpen guy to a starter, unbelievable stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why I ranked him five. I'm just all in on him next year.
Yeah. No,
so
I'm with you.
it feels like there are two guys that are really just like kind of scraping the surface of who they can be as a starting pitcher. And I think it's Crochet and Skeens when you look in the top 10, right?
Yeah.
Skeens, that was year two of him being a full-time pitcher, and he was a 196 in the big
Yeah.
leagues when he got there. And it was what, third in Cy Young voting. And then Crochet, that was his first year starting since what COVID shortened 20 at the University of Tennessee. So like when you think scraping the surface of who you are, I know a lot of people want to clump Hunter Green into that too because it feels
Mm.
like he's kind of hitting that final form. Are
Yeah.
there other guys that kind of jump to the forefront of your mind where it's like, yeah, they started to look really good, but there are probably two, three, four more steps they can take in their career and their maturation as a pitcher?
Yeah, I mean Yamamoto is one of those guys in terms of the spin. I mean all the young guys are in there. They're in that mix, right? I think when you talk about like the best starting pitchers to have a number one guy, blah blah blah. Like there's steps to that. You can be as good as you want, like going every fifth or sixth day, going deep, blah blah blah. Like I feel like I've only had one season that I would say like no, that I was like that guy. Um, and so I've had 3 or 4 good years, right? So like there's different levels to it. And, I think me growing up and getting to play with a lot of these guys that did that for a long time has been kind of a driving force on like what I'm trying to get out of what I'm doing. And yeah, I mean, there's just kind of levels to it, I think.
Yeah.
So six of us ranked all of our top 30 starting pitchers, and then we aggregate the list. And I was the high guy on Chris Sale, item number six. A
Yeah.
couple other people are a little bit lower, and you could say, well, the age curve, right? Father Time is undefeated. But what he showed last year showed me zero signs of slowing down at his age, that he
Yeah.
was dealing with some injuries and actually had a fresher arm than maybe his age might tell us. So would you agree with me and you think that Chris Sale is definitive top five, top six, or would you have him a little bit lower? Again, one of the
No,
best pitchers in
I think
baseball
it's a fair argument on both sides. The only like nobody wants to face Chris Sale
ever.
ever. Uh, but I think that's kind of why I think Tanner has a chance to kind of take that next thing is because he throws very similar, it's just right-handed and it's uncomfortable and there's all these things that Chris does. Chris pitches with this freedom of like, I don't care what happens, I'm just gonna throw this ball hard. And I think there's something to that for him that once he's finally got out there and then you start doing that and have success, he can sustain these runs for a long time that other guys can't quite do. You can think your way out of those kind of runs sometimes, and he doesn't seem to do that. Not that he doesn't think or plan or scout, but watching him, it's like there's this freedom to it that not everyone really has.
It's also like so fun to watch that guy work. And there are, very few guys that, hold themselves to, I think, that high of a standard publicly on the mound. And like Sale is pissed when he misses his spot. And he is like when I was younger, I would say like, oh, he's that level of psychopath that I want in a starting pitcher. But what I like really appreciate about him is like he holds himself to a high standard. He's not afraid to show everybody that he holds himself to a high standard. And
Yep.
he thinks he's the baddest MF on the planet when he's on the mound. And I think you fall into that category as well, where it's like people can see that when you're on the hill and you're going right. Are
Yep.
there other guys like that in the game that jump out to you? I think about Scherzer as well. A couple years ago, he was kind of that same build.
Yeah, Lance Lynn is in that conversation.
Yeah.
Scherzer, Clayton gets like that.
Yeah.
They're all guys do it. It's just the kind of everyone that does it publicly, everyone knows they do it publicly, right? And so, no, Rich Hill, we talked about, Richie was like that pretty good. That was a fun one. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys, and I don't necessarily know if it's like that positive of a quality. Like I wish I didn't have to do that, but I do think when it comes out naturally, it means there's an attention that's going on in your head that's very positive.
Yeah.
Quick side note. What do you think about the reports that Lance Lynn is getting approached about being a closer?
I think it would be awesome,
Yeah.
personally.
How come?
I thought about texting today about it, but I didn't know if he would like it or not, and so I decided to not text him about it. But no, I think it would be awesome.
How come?
I think first off, it's what we're talking about. It's the screaming and the yelling, and I think late in games that would be awesome. I think just the daily decision to take the cart or not is something that would be on the table. And I think Lance would really, I think if he chooses to do it, he would really embrace the cart, which would be fun. Um, I'm trying to remember. There is a movie character relief pitcher that he reminds me of.
It's not Wild Thing from Major League, right? It's not Charlie
No,
Sheen.
I'm gonna have to get back to you on this because I may be wrong. It may be a hitter. I may be confusing the hitter from Rookie of the Year potentially. The
See,
guy
the
with
other one that
the
jumps to my mind
handlebar.
is Carlos from the Benchwarmers.
No, I'm thinking the guy handlebar mustache, or the one that comes down like this with no chin piece. Maybe the hitter
Yeah,
for Rookie of the Year.
is that Rookie of the Year? Or is that
Yeah, with the floater.
yeah, that's right. Maybe Angels in
Yeah,
the Out? No, Rookie of the Year. Yeah.
yeah,
So
it
what
happens.
what sometimes we do on these top 30s, like I'll come out with my top 100 players, is some of these rankings you make a statement. Like you say, you know what? Like Garrett Crochet at 5. I'm so bullish on him that I want to just force him up this list.
Yep.
Is there anyone that you've seen on our top 25,
Uh,
or even just in general, in your opinion, that if you were making a top 20, you would want to make a statement with? He's thinking for everybody on YouTube. He's got the hand on the chin. He's
I
just
would, I
cooking.
would, I think of the guys that I would move up the furthest, it would be Michael King.
Michael
Okay.
King. How come?
Um, so I think you're seeing this as guys that you think are going to like take the next step, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not always that into that. I think Michael hasn't started that long. And the first season of it, there's some stuff that you learn tempo of your bullpens, days, timing, lifting, all of that stuff. And given that he's been a successful major league pitcher for a long time, I think the performance stuff will kind of take care of himself. And I think the next thing is like all that makes this easier and makes it kind of a different level.
So Michael King, not only do you expect him to continue the dominance, but and that's all there is to it almost, is just give another year and show people like this is a real pitcher. Because if we're just looking
Yeah.
at 2024, he's probably a top 10 guy. And what you're
Right.
saying is he's going to again show that he's a top 10 guy,
Yeah,
solidifying himself in that
I
conference.
don't think there's that many guys that will all take a step forward 100% that
Mm,
would be better than he was last year.
fair
Fair,
enough.
fair. And it's
I
like,
also think the ballpark he pitches in very conducive to what he does.
yeah.
Uh, Ball moves a ton in San Diego, big park, athletic players, that kind of deal.
And you're not supposed to create that stuff from that slot, right? It's why Manaea was so good, and yet the stuff is better than
Yeah.
that because it's high 90s to mid 90s, and then that changeup is crazy, and you play the horizontal separation game. He's as good as
Yep.
anybody in Major League Baseball.
I would agree.
So,
But we,
I guess my last question for you on this list is you started with this name, and I want to end with this name, Max Fried, right? Because you've
Yep.
known him for a very, very long time. And that was the
Mhm.
first name that came to your head when I'm talking about somebody that should be potentially top 10. You've known him for a long time, you've seen him
Mhm.
pitch for a long time. What makes Max Fried so good?
Um, it's command, it's feel, but then it's doing that with an very unpredictable fastball because it cuts, it doesn't cut, it run. He's throwing two seamers, he's cutting them. He does a lot of stuff with the fastball that makes it, even if you're on time for that pitch, that doesn't mean you're going to hit it
Mm,
hard. And I think he has probably the most unpredictable fastball, especially of a guy. He started throwing two seamers, but a guy that's throwing a four seam fastball, you're going to get the most different shapes out of his hand of anyone.
mm. And then, of course, he can locate all those breaking balls, and then he can do it on the highest stage as well. So there's
Yep.
no time where it's like, oh, is Max Fried struggling when he gets to the big moments? Not at all.
Yep.
It's the same thing every single time, and just blowing smoke at 97.
Yeah. And probably the best pickoff move in the big leagues potentially.
Mm.
mhm,
That's another
that's
little factor. That's a little feather in the cap situation.
for sure.
Especially with the new base running rules, like it makes it really easy to steal, but he's one of the guys who actually makes it really difficult. That is something.
Yeah. Last thing is about you. You said what get down to Florida this weekend? What's the schedule? It sounds like you're beating report date by a week.
I think our report date's the 12th, so I'm not beating it by that much.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll get down there Saturday, Super Bowl Sunday, then kind of get going.
It's awesome, man.
What is
Looking forward. Yeah.
real quick, what does day one look like of getting going?
It's the same. I mean, it's the same thing we've been doing, but obviously new team, new environment, and kind of feel everybody out, see what everybody's doing, blah, 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 play catch, all that kind of stuff. But I imagine we'll have some conversations and see the medical people, see the strength guys, see what
Yeah.
kind of where we're at, figure out where my locker is. That's, all the normal stuff.
Cool.
Yeah. That's gonna be good, man. Walker Buehler, the Boston Red Sox. We'll check in either back half of spring training or after you make your regular season debut in a different uniform,
I
man.
like it. Yeah, number 0, by the way.
Yeah, that's it. Also, the new profile picture is awesome.
Pretty good. My guy, Ugonzo Art. Check him out. He does some cool stuff.
Really good, man. All right,
Appreciate you,
appreciate
buddy.
you.